Hey, Buff Nation, voice of the boss, Mark Johnson here. You know, with everything being kind of up in the air the way we are in society right now, everything's changing. A lot of this virtual kind of stuff. But one of the things that's become virtual this year, of course, is the annual Ski Bowl, which is a phenomenal event for the University of Colorado ski team. So we're doing virtual conversations like this one. Jack Turner was a great skier for the Colorado Buffaloes under Bill Marola. He's joining us here for a couple of minutes. Jack, it doesn't quite have the same feel for the Ski Bowl when we're talking this way, not getting together, having a great time, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's kind of early in the morning to be having a little champagne with my breakfast.
Without question. When we talk about this ski program here at the University of Colorado, I mean, there's so much history to talk about. It's been such an amazing program for so many years. When you think back to your time in the mid-'70s at the University of Colorado, I mentioned Bill Marola as the head coach. What stands out in your mind about your time with the Buffaloes, winning all those national championships?
Oh man, there's a lot of things that stand out, and clearly, you know, Bill Marola set the tone for the entire program, and we were all so blessed to be on those teams, and I mean, the stories are just amazing. But probably, I think Bill actually affected our personal lives more for just throughout our careers, and a big part of it was that he really emphasized that victory was attainable if you had the willpower. And I can remember my very first meeting when we were all hauled into, I think, Mackey Auditorium, and we were all there, and I had saucer eyes. I was a freshman. Is that I remember Bill looking up and says, we're on the ski team here because we're here to win. And the strongest man always wins, and I am going to make absolutely certain that we are the strongest when we're at the championships. If we lose from something else, that's fine, but we will not go unprepared. And I think that's probably really what's guided his hugely amazing career for decades.
You know, while we're talking with Jack here, we're also going to check in with a number of his teammates around that same time. The first one we check in, alpine skier from 1973 to 1976, Jeff Temple.
One fall we were training, and we had to do a lot of hiking. It came in as a freshman. It was very difficult. Green Mountain was especially probably the hardest hike that we had to do. And then there was the Green Mountain Grand Prix, which was toward the end of the fall, and I just dreaded it because I was definitely not one of the faster guys on the trail. I had been racing a lot of motocross. I had a 400 Mako at my house, and I brought it over and hit it in the bushes the night before the Green Mountain Grand Prix, and Bill Marola came out, and there were about 80 people out there on the start because there was a bicycle for first place. And he lifted his hand up and started the race, and I ran over and got on the motorcycle and pulled a wheelie up pretty much all the way through the bottom part of the big meadow and then up into the beginnings of the hike. And I think some of the cross-country guys were pretty bummed that I did that. They passed me in about 5 minutes. But what I later found out, Bill was filming a recruiting video that day, and I completely messed that up. It didn't look too good to have 25, 30, 80 total athletes out there that day and have a motorcycle all of a sudden erupt out of the weeds and with a guy on it trying to win the race. And again, I didn't come close. Everybody passed me really fast. I think the skee ball is especially critical for the ski team, especially now. Funding is difficult, and as most people know, the skee ball represents a fundraising activity that the other teams just don't have, and we're really lucky that Bill started that, so long ago, and that the tradition has continued. And it's nothing but more and more important as we go along. And this year, really, is probably one of the most challenging that we've had ever.
Now, Jack, Jeff Temple, as I mentioned, was an alpine skier from 1973 to 1976. A thought or two about your teammate Jeff Temple from back in the mid-'70s.
Well, Jeff is very lucky there was no Facebook back then. I can tell you that much for sure. That's actually true for all of us. A lot of things we didn't know were bad for at the time, but Jeff is just a wonderful person. My very first memory of him, and everybody who knew him at the time can relate to this story, is that I think it was the first Saturday we showed up for training in the fall, and it was the Alpine team and the Nordic team were all together. I was on the Nordic team, and Bill said, "Okay, everybody run to the top of Green Mountain." And I didn't know the way, that I didn't know the trail. So I just jumped on Steinberg's tail to follow him because I didn't know the path. And so he was in really good shape. And we got about 3/4 of the way up the mountain, and suddenly we come along and here's Jeff Temple jogging down the trail. And I was like, hey, he's cheating. And turns out he had ridden his motorcycle up about halfway up and then started running. And if you know Jeff, that was pretty typical of him. And of course, I wanted to have him thrown off the team immediately. And I was going to go tell Bill Merolt, because when I first showed up, I was so incredibly clean cut and follow the rules kind of guy. And that lasted about a month. But anyway, Jeff brought so much personality and spirit to that team. I can tell you that for sure. Amazing human being.
Yeah, he had a very strong senior season for the Buffaloes, 1976, with 13 top 10 finishes. And speaking of winning, Jack, during your time here, you didn't know any losing him, and you were in that stretch of the Buffaloes when it was one national championship after another, 4 years, 4 NCAA championships. You get a little spoiled during a period like that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was even more intense than that because I think every single person on our team was either on the U.S. national team or on the Norwegian national team. A lot of times we really didn't see each other too much until we got near the regionals. And it was we were like at the time, we like to say we were like the Oakland Raiders of skiing. And by that is that, every other team looked so preppy, and quite honestly, our team looked like a bunch of rogue bandits. I mean, we had long hair, Fu Manchu mustaches, and I can't tell any more stories that would relate to the Oakland Raiders, but it was a very committed group of guys. And I can tell you this, there were times when we actually won, and we might not have actually had the best team, but whenever we got to the championships, everybody was able just to pull it out from everywhere. And it was an amazing stretch, an amazing time. I just feel so lucky to have been there.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal foundation being laid for the Buffaloes. Another one of Jack's teammates was really the first women's star in skiing for the Buffaloes. They crossed over late in Jack's career, and that's Toni Leuthold.
Hey, Jack and Mark. Thanks for letting me be part of this virtual fundraising for the CU Buffaloes. I'm Toni Leuthold. I was born and raised in Government Camp, Oregon, at the base of Mount Hood. I started skiing when I was 1.5 and racing at 6, and was part of the Pacific Northwest ski team. A couple of the ski team members, Stephen Hench and Mark Ford, were outstanding competitors for CU legendary men's team in the 70s. And I looked into the business school at CU and decided to make the move to Colorado. When I got there, we didn't know that we were the first women's ski team ever at CU. It was formerly a club sport. We just found out a couple of years ago we were the first ones. There wasn't any funding, there wasn't any scholarships, no recruiting, but we had a lot of fun and we raced. That's what we did. We even paid our own way to nationals in Vermont, and it was a great time. Well, except for the cross country. We had one cross country member, Cindy Farney, and she needed some teammates, so Cindy Supplizio and Wendy Wirtz and I all raced cross country, and we were really bad because we hadn't trained. But it was a lot of fun, and we raced. After I graduated at CU, I continued my business and skiing career at Winter Park Resort, starting with Alpine Coach, Snowmaker, Ski Patroller, and Risk and Safety Manager. I'm still there 40 years later and still skiing, and it's been a great ride.
Now, Toni Leuthold was with the Buffaloes for 1977 to 1980. She was the first women's All-American and was the 1979 Colorado Alpine Skier of the Year. And Jack, as I mentioned before we heard from Toni, she really was the first women's star in skiing at the University of Colorado. What memories do you have of Toni?
Well, not just Toni, but all the other women that were on that team, is that they were really treated like secondhand citizens in many ways back then. I think that might have been before Title IX passed in skiing, and they were actually part of, I think it was called AIW or something like that. But the commitment of those women and their coaches was it was just something else. And Toni herself is someone I just dearly love and is an amazing person. But one of the things about Toni, like a lot of us that skied for Bill, is that she went on and she made her life, as many of us did, in the ski industry. And I don't know all the particular details, but I know that she rose very high through the ranks of the Winter Park ski area, for instance, and made, vast contributions to skiing beyond being an athlete in terms of, helping kids, helping ski areas, really promoting the whole sport.
What was it about Bill Merolt? He, of course, has such a special place at the University of Colorado, not just in terms of skiing, but obviously as the athletic director at one point as well, setting the stage for a football national championship. Talk about being an athlete for Bill Merolt. What was he like back in those days?
Geez, it was just so committed. And, my favorite story about Bill wasn't really from the CU days. It was from when we all went to the U.S. ski team after CU. And I remember in his second go around when he came back to the U.S. ski team, he printed up the stationery, and at the bottom of the stationery it said "Best in the World." And I can remember the ridicule that came. People were going, "You got a lot of gall putting best in the world," because at the time we were not best in the world, and the Norwegians and the Swiss and the Austrians were just pounding the U.S. every time we went. And I can remember him looking at me and saying, "If anybody can have a goal, but if you're going to have one you attempt to achieve, then paint it on the side of a barn and figure out how you're going to get there." And that spoke to me in terms of, you just cannot take no for an answer if you're going to be successful. And success is attainable. And, that was the era that started, folks like Bodie Miller and, Lindsey Vonn and Ted and, a whole slew of skiers that came out, and not just in Alpine, but in Nordic combined and freestyle and jumping. And Bill is a transformational character in terms of his influence. Look, when he came back to CU and took over as the athletic director, that's when CU won their football championship. So that's the guy, I always say he was born under a lucky star, but well, I'll tell you, he created a lot of his own luck, and he created a lot of luck for a lot of other people too.
Yeah, he set that standard for you guys as a ski team, and then brought that same mentality into the athletic department. Our last former teammate of Jackson we're going to catch up with, he was here from 1973 to 1976, an individual alpine combined and downhill individual champion in 1975, Mark Ford.
Hi, all CU skiers, ski team, men, women, club members, spouses, families, friends, staff, supporters, and enthusiasts. We are fortunate. We are all a part of this. Hey, when I was in high school, I had no interest in going to college. It sounded like going to prison for 4 years. I was really a lot more into this. But a few things changed my mind. I was in Australia with the US ski team, and Kenny Korak was there, and he said, "Hey, it's not like going to prison, and if you don't like it, just drop out after a term." He said, "That's what I did." That was really kind of freeing. Also, CU had skiing, and the team the year before, 1971 team, they won the NCAAs, and they made a poster with all the clippings and smiling faces and a bunch of good-looking girls smiling on that poster, and that's what did it. That put me over the line to go to CU.
Now, Jack, there's another one of your teammates, Mark Ford. He was an All-American as well. You get some memories of Mark for us?
Yeah, I think the thing I remember about Mark is that every other guy wanted to be Mark. He was so dang good looking and such a good skier. He was a very popular person. And he was really funny too. Actually, our whole team had a sense of humor that was just unreal in terms of the tricks we play and the mischief we got into. But I got to tell you, when Ford got in the starting gate, especially for a downhill, back then we had downhill in college skiing. It was a sight to behold. Those guys, I think I can remember one year as Mark Ford and Stephen Hench and Mark Milligan and Bruce Gamble. I think we had like 4 or 5 I think we had 3 in the top 5 and all 5 in the top 10 of downhill or something like that. And our whole team and almost every event finished that way. It was an amazing experience. And I can tell you this, I'm not surprised at all that his son is such a star on the U.S. ski team now, because, man, it's in his blood for sure.
we're sitting here doing this virtual event for the skee ball this year, and this has always been, as you well know, such a big event, number one, in terms of fundraising and supporting the ski program. But Jack, number two, the family atmosphere around this program. It's always been a special event because everybody comes back and gets together for this. But I know even in these strange times in which we're in, getting behind and supporting this program in Richard Brokos' last year is so ultimately important. That's why even this virtual event is such a big deal for the ski team, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I got to tell you, in the years that I've been able to come back for the skee ball, it's always fun to see our old teammates and Bill and Connie and celebrate with everybody. But what I remember the most, especially the last couple of years, is looking at those kids, and that's what I call them, the men and women of the ski team getting up there, being introduced on the stage. And I look at that and I go, man, that is what's right with our country. Those people are so beautiful, and not just because they're fast and ski racers, but they're ambitious young people that are, I'm just so proud of and so proud to know. And I just hope that programs like the ski team can continue to thrive the way they have and to build character. And I just can't say enough about how important it is that we focus on the good things in life, because so much of our time is dominated by what not's right. So I encourage everybody out there, and wherever you're seeing this, is that, support the CU ski team, and anything that brings out the best in young people, because God, they have a heck of a challenge ahead of them.
Amen. I couldn't have said it better. Outstanding. Jack, it's been great catching up with you. Congratulations on a phenomenal career, and we'll look forward to seeing you when things get back to normal. We can have an actual skee ball back here on campus.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Cheers.
All right. You bet. Cheers. One of the greats in buff skiing history as we celebrate the virtual skee ball, Jack Turner.